Welcome to the I'm a Lot at Times podcast. I'm the host, dlouthetruth,
It's your boy Lucci.
and welcome to a very special episode, man. This is the twin edition of the I'm a Lot at Times podcast. You know what I'm saying? Just so happen that things worked out that way. Ken is busy, and man, a lot of y'all might not know this. Birdman, Jayhawk, man, he actually had his baby. So you know what I'm saying? Let's clap it up for Birdman. Becoming a first time father. We had been talking about, him becoming a dad on here quite often and just leading up to it. And man, baby girl is actually here. She's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? He's happy. Shout out to his lady. You know what I'm saying? She's happy. They're happy. So we're happy, man. So congratulations to Birdman and AT again, man.
Man, congrats, Hawk.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Man, another thing we talked about a lot on here was like the whole Shadur Sanders saga. You know what I'm saying? And we talked about, him and Deion Sanders and just all that was going on around the draft and all that had been happening leading up to it. And one of the things that kind of stood out to me a lot was like nepotism, like, and I'll say that I'm somebody who kind of like would throw that out there a little bit, like, I don't know how much they had to work for certain things. If your dad is already this guy and he's already doing his thing or whatever, right? And it's not that I was even against it.
Mm.
Um, it was just that, you know, it's just a topic of conversation. It's just a topic, you know what I'm saying? So, but it made me think about how much nepotism is involved in like everything, you know what I'm saying? Politics, you know what I'm saying? Coaching, acting, you know what I'm saying? Anything that's not anything that's major, but you know, I noticed that like nepotism is just something that occurs in a lot of different fields.
Mm.
And I feel like, sometimes it's a unfair criticism because if we was as successful as LeBron James and we could bring our son into the NBA, I think we would do it too. You know what I'm saying? Or if we
Right.
had to kind of pull that Deion Sanders had and we could, give our son a better option. I mean, give our son a better opportunity with like what we worked hard for, then we would do it too. And you talk about like people inheriting like uh, you know, money from their family members when they pass away and like inheriting their houses and their land and all their property and their assets and stuff like that. When you talk about that kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying? Well, when you talk about nepotism, all of that kind of stuff has to be considered. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, I wanted to discuss nepotism and just see how you felt about it, Lucci. Like, how do you feel about that? People criticizing people for looking out for their children, or using their power to benefit like their family members. How you feel about that?
Man, one, I think it's a waste of time. I think a lot of times we try to find something to piggyback on, man. If it were me, I'd be bragging about my son the same way.
Yeah,
I love to be on the news talking all the mess that I can. If I'm coaching and my son just balling like that. But at the end of the day, what I noticed with entertainment, they always stir themselves to find something, to give direction to. And with Deion Sanders being somebody who's very pinnacle in football
yeah,
and did a lot in baseball, then he have his sons come and do a lot in football in college,
yeah,
and they, pretty much like the same way that he is.
yeah,
I feel like it's a form of hatred. A lot of times they say, "Oh, it's not," but like being a black man in America, as we can all see, it ain't nothing. It ain't like you know what I'm saying. If I give you for example, when they talked about the Mannings, both the brothers, his pops, he played and all that, it wasn't nothing that they was talking about. They just
yeah,
had nothing but good stuff to show about him.
yeah,
And that's just something that just stuck out to my mind right now. But when it comes to someone like Deion Sanders, who did a lot for the game, came in, did a lot for football as a coach, and then his sons come in and do a lot for different organizations, and now he's making it into the NFL. And you know what I'm saying? I just feel like it's just something for them to target. It's a form of target. But I like the way that Deion Sanders and his son, you know, um, carried themselves. Even
hmm
with him getting around that he got picked, he was still honored. He's still happy. And I can't wait to see what this dude gonna do. But I just think it's just a target to see how they'll reflect or how they'll respond to it rather than reacting. And I think the
Yeah,
way that they react to everything that's going on is very positive. So
yeah,
just talking about that, I'm bragging the hell out of my son.
yeah,
I don't care. My son, if he got an A in a spelling bee, shoot, I'm bragging about it. We're gonna put that on the news.
yeah,
Anything I can think of, you think about how difficult it is to even have children. You know what I'm saying? And so when you have a child, like man, that's like a trophy right there. That's something you want to show off. So
yeah.
praise to Dion, man.
I was real critical. Like, I wasn't. I take that back. That sounds so like serious. I wasn't super critical of, like LeBron and Bronny. I thought it was cool. Um, I felt how I felt about it. You know what I'm saying? I ain't saying that because I had people argue good points. Like, he was like one of the last people picked in the draft, and the guy before him, what is he doing and stuff. So it's like, okay, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hear what everyone is saying. But like I said, I looked back at it like, if it was the commissioner's son or his grandson, he'd have got drafted and it wouldn't have been a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Here you got a player who, like, is at the top of the game. He kind of on the decline because he's like the oldest player in the NBA, I believe, right now. You know what I'm saying? And it's just his time is coming. But LeBron was definitely at the top of the NBA for a couple of decades. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Up there for a couple of decades. And it's just kind of like, yo, man, if he got his son in there, like, what's the big deal? You know what I'm saying? Because literally nepotism is something that's happening, like I said, in all fields. You know what I'm saying? Like where I work at, it happens. Um, like when you look at actors like Angelina Jolie, like I think her dad was an actor too. He's like
oh, wow.
her dad is an actor, like a very
Wow.
famous actor.
Never knew
You know
that.
what I'm saying? When you look at some of these politicians and stuff like that, they dads was, like George W. Bush, his dad was the president, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Before he became the president, you know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of like, it's no coincidence that like some people kind of have an easier path to where others are trying to go. And you can't really be upset with it. You know what I'm saying? Because, they got family members that paid way for them. Now, I don't want this topic to turn dark and start talking about like slavery and stuff like that, and people inheriting like, land and what I'm saying, and just, stuff that they made off of, stuff that, people inheriting off of like free labor. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? I don't want to get into all of that and stuff like that, because that's a lot more serious. And I don't want to, I know what I know, but I don't know everything about, all of that stuff. I just know that it's a lot of old money floating around here.
Mm.
And it's a lot of people that'll tell other people to go get a job and they ain't never had to do shit they so it's just kind of like, it's kind of funny to